Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on whichever part of the world you are tuning in from. I'm so excited, grateful for life, and thankful to be with you here this morning as we take another fresh new look at the financial market. Well, the last 24 hours has been quite interesting across the financial assets on our watch list, most especially the XAUUSD. For those who are part of the XAUUSD live monitoring window, we were able to scoop in a significant amount of profit from the fourth. I think we had a fourth position triggered yesterday, and then I think we had another fifth one. I think we shall be looking at that to see how the market had played out in the last 24 hours and how we intend to capitalize on more trading opportunities today. And of course, we also had interesting trading setup, of course, on the GBPUSD. It's only on the USDJPY where we have been noticing some little choppy situation going on as we yet to get a decisive direction at this point in time. So we are welcome on board, everyone. And for those who are joining us for the first time, you might be asking that what is it that we do here? Well, we come together here on a daily basis in anticipation of both the London and the New York session. And while we do this, we try to review how well the assets we've been monitoring so far has been doing. And if we do have existing positions, we want to see how to manage them. And of course, at the same time, strategically position ourselves ahead of the London and New York session. So this happens on a daily basis. So you want to be part of the session and stay tuned in through to the end of the session, as the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how that works, and of course eventually be able to use this information to make your own independent trading decisions. So we normally focus on the 1 hour time frame here on the Forex Morning Mastery with Sheriff Daramola, and we've already done a top-down analysis. So during the course of the weekend, I normally share with the public what my plans are for the new week, which for those who have not watched the video, please do. There's in the description box below, duly timestamped, so you can easily navigate to whichever aspect of the video is of your interest. So watching that video will give you a background knowledge of what we are talking about here on the 1 hour time frame, and of course give us an educational guide to understanding price action. So with that being said, here let's dive right into the business. So as usual, today being the last trading day of the month, it comes with some peculiarities which we are also going to be taking into consideration while we are reviewing the current market structure. So today being the last trading day of the month, there is always this expectation that majority of the key players in the market who have held a position for a long time, let's say over a month now, will want to be doing some profit-taking activity, which of course would result and reflect on the chart as price action moving in the opposite direction of where it has been going since the beginning of the month. So we are going to be taking all this into consideration too as well. And in that regard, I have conducted a comprehensive analysis on all of the assets on our watch list for this week, and using simple parameters such as trend lines, key levels, and of course chart patterns to gain valuable insights into the historical price movement. So with that being said, here we shall be diving right into the business, and as usual we are going to be looking at the economic calendar. This is of course what we normally do when we start our morning routine here on the Forex Morning Mastery. So we check the economic calendar, and by now, for those who have been with me for a while, you know that these fundamental factors often manifest on the chart in technical patterns and price movement. By monitoring the economic calendar, we can easily identify potential correlations between key economic releases and specific technical patterns, hereby giving us valuable information that can make us strategically position ourselves in such a way that we can capitalize on any potential opportunity prior, during, and even after this event. So on the economic calendar, we shall be focusing on high impact events from the economic dockets that affect the assets on our watch list. So we are going to be looking at the US, the United Kingdom, and of course the Japanese economy. So today, Thursday, August 31, we are only looking forward to one high impact event from the United States, and that is the core personal consumption expenditure, a price index. It's also an inflationary data to look out for too. And for those who don't know, this is released by the US Bureau of Economic Analysis, and it is an average amount of money that consumers spend within a month. So it includes seasonal volatile products such as foods and energy in order to capture an accurate calculation of the expenditure. A higher reading, of course, is considered to be positive for the US dollar, while a low reading is considered as negative. Now, if we look at the previous data for the month of June, the month on month, we had a 0.2%, and economists are projecting another 0.2%. So it's a sign that things have not really changed from the previous data. So we are going to be looking forward to what the actual data is going to be like. Will it be beyond expectations, below expectations, or even just as expected? And this is another key event from the United States, which everyone in the market will of course be looking forward to. And in fact, the anticipation of this event is going to be reflecting on the chart as price action. Now, one more thing I would like us to buttress here on the economic calendar was the events that happened yesterday. And from the US economic docket, we had the ADP employment change and of course the gross domestic product annualized for quarter two, which of course didn't come as expected. It came way below expectation and not a palatable figure for the US dollar at all. And of course, we noticed how the market reacted to that event. Price of the US dollar nosedive significantly throughout last week, throughout yesterday's trading session, to emphasize some weakness in the US economy. Though we still have some major high impact event coming up much more later in the week. That's tomorrow, like the non-farm payroll, the average hourly earnings. These are labor data that has a significant impact on the market. And of course, the Fed's Reserve will also be looking forward to see what this actual data will be, as it will be affecting the interest rate hike decision that will be coming up next month. But the way things are going right now with the unpalatable figures from the United States, there are chances that there could be a halt in interest rate hike, which will of course does not make the dollar more attractive compared to its other peers. So we are going to be looking at how all this is going to be affecting just simply by looking at price action, giving us an idea into the psychology of the market. Look out for patterns and structures that we shall be using to anticipate and guide our trading decisions for today. So with the informations we have gathered so far right here, let's dive right into the chart to look at things from a technical standpoint. And that reminds me, before we kickstart, I would like to know if the audio and the visual of the session is good. Please let me know. I've spent a lot of time trying to ensure that we have a better experience out here, and your feedbacks will really be appreciated. So please let me know in the comment section if the audio is fine without distortion. From our own end here, it's quite okay, but I'll really appreciate your feedbacks in that regard. So with that being said, let's dive right into the chart. I see your comment, Princess Abulokwe. Good morning to you, and glad to have you around here with us this morning. So the first financial asset on our watch list for today is the US All Spot, and the GBPUSD. Really, sincerely, we are not treating the US All Spots in this session. So the next asset we're looking at right now is the GBPUSD. Sorry about that. So the GBPUSD has been doing pretty well since in the last 48 hours now. Is it up to 48 hours? I think 48 hours now. We have been buying this asset actually. Remember, we had a couple of stop losses it during the first day of the week, so we didn't start the week on a very positive note, as we had price take us out of our sell position initially before we begin to be part of this uptrend scenario, hereby recouping all the losses we incurred at the beginning of the week. Now, before we kickstart, I would like us to run through how the week started for us here, and this will give us an educational understanding of how price action works, and at the same time gives us a background knowledge of where we are coming from and how we intend to anticipate today's trading session. So I will zoom right into the structure we had at the beginning of the week. So at the beginning of the week, we initially acknowledged a key level at the 1.2600 area, which was duly identified on the daily time frame and of course on the 1 hour time frame, and we saw how significant that level is, how it was a selling niche at some point, how it was a buying niche at some point. For those who are not part of our live session on Monday, I will advise you to watch that session, as I went into detail on how important that level is and how it's going to be guiding our trading activity for this week. And you know how we use our key levels in this community, as if price breaks above the key level, we want to look out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of buying that asset. Now, look at what happened here on the GBPUSD since the beginning of the week. Initially, we saw how price action was trapped within the key level and the 1.25790. This was within the space of about 19 hours or so for Monday morning, for Monday's trading session, as we saw price trapped within a range, which further emphasized the level of indecision at that point in time. And you know how we do it in this channel. Whenever we have a range like this, which further emphasizes the uncertainty in the market, we have no other choice than to remain patient, waiting for a signal to come in the form of either a breakout of the resistance line for an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell. And in fact, because of this engulfing bearish candle we noticed here right before our live session on Monday, we thought that sellers will likely be dictating the pace for the week. And in fact, as a result of that, we had a couple of sell positions which actually went into stop loss, as you will see here. We had one here, we had another one here, all of which went into stop loss. So we started the week on a negative note, but with our persistence and alignment with structure, we waited for new opportunities, and thank goodness we were able to capitalize on this bullish momentum. We saw the first one happen here. We saw the breakout of the key level that moved about 35 pips before price action came in to take us out at break even on that one. Then we also added one more here on Tuesday, and since Tuesday we have been buying this particular asset. And remember that we had identified levels that we said we were going to be using to maximize the potential of that bullish move. So we added more positions at the breakout of structures such as the 1.26300 level, as you will see here. We also added one more at the 1.265 and added at the 1.267 as we rode all that move all the way to the upside. So it was quite an interesting buy position for us in the last 48 hours now, and we were able to scoop in over 300 pips in profit on that single move, as that price went to as far as the 1.27450 level. Now, for those who still have a buy position in this market right now, you indeed want to be moving your stop losses accordingly, lock in some profit at this point in time, as there are chances that sellers might likely be coming in at any point in time. So at this point, if you are still in a sell buy position, you do want to be having your stop losses anywhere below the 1.26950, or even get out of this trade right now, as price action is at a crucial moment at this point. So with the information we have gathered here, how do we intend to guide our trading activities for today? Are we going to continue buying the GBPUSD, or is there chances that we are going to be selling this asset for today? Now, if you look at this current structure from a technical standpoint, the first thing you would observe here, for those who are with me on my TradingView and Telegram platform, you definitely have gotten an update as regards to how we want to be capitalizing on this opportunity here. So I shared here that we have a range. Let me zoom right here in, I think, so that we can see things clearly. So we have a range since price tested that new high at the 1.27450 level. We saw price was confined within that range between that level and the 1.27120 to emphasize the level of indecision at this point in time. And you know how we do it whenever we have a simple flat channel like this. We want to remain patient, waiting for a signal to come, either in the form of the breakout of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell. Now, with the way things are going within this range here, you will notice that price action has been finding lower highs, giving us clue that we might be heading, we might be transitioning into what might look like a reversal pattern, probably to incite a retracement of that impulsive move we witnessed in the last 48 hours. And another thing I said we shall be using to guide our trading activity for this week is this ascending trend line. So since Tuesday's trading session, we have seen our price action had consistently found higher highs and higher lows. And when we connect the series of higher lows, we have an ascending trend line to work with. And for those who have been with us in this community for a while now, you know that whenever we have an ascending trend line, we want to be looking out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of buying that asset. Now, with the way things are going right now, it appears price is back within that ascending trend line, as you will see right here. And in fact, in the last 3 hours, we have seen how buyers are trying to maintain that momentum and sellers are trying as much as possible to push price to the downside. And this could be some signs of profit-taking activities, as majority are not sure if this bullish trend will continue as expected. So at this point in time, if we are going to be considering selling the GBPUSD today, I would rather want to see price action break down, retest the 1.271200 level, which of course shares a confluence with that ascending trend line. And of course, we have that descending trend line here sharing a very, very important juncture here to look out for opportunities. So to give a visual representation here, I want to see breakdown, retest of structure before I want to start considering selling. And remember, at this juncture, we will need confirmation that truly sellers are going to be dictating the pace. Now, to do that, once we cite a breakdown of that ascending trend line, we scale down into our lower time frame. It could be the 5 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes time frame to look out for signs that buyers are finding it difficult to climb back above that ascending trend line. And this, of course, would reflect on the chart as price doing a retest of that structure with signs of selling pressure resuming. Then we want to be part of a bearish move to the downside. Now, if selling opportunities come here, we don't know how far this is going to go, because at this point in time, I will be considering this as a counter trend opportunity, considering the bullish momentum we've been witnessing since the beginning of the week. So we have levels here that we shall be using to guide the end of this retracement. So we have levels like the 1.267, 1.265, and of course the 1.263, which of course shares a confluence with this ascending trend line we have here since Monday's trading session. So if price comes into this area, if price gets any close into these levels, we ensure that we move our stop losses, secure the sell positions while we wait and see how the market is going to be reacting to these levels or this trend line to decide what our next line of action will be. Now, one of the things that we can be looking out for here when price gets into any of the structure is if we begin to see some buy pressure, something like a reversal pattern, like a double bottom, inverse head and shoulder, falling wedge, whichever the case it may be around this area, then the chances of an uptrend continuation becomes very evident. But if price at any point in time breaks down this trend line, then it's likely that we are going to be having a downtrend continuation, hereby giving us more opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So this is how we are going to be managing this position for today on the GBPUSD. Now, for those who are already profitable on this asset since the beginning of the week, you can afford to leverage on the profit you have made so far to test waters around very important levels to join any move. So in this case scenario here, you might want to be part of the sell momentum. You don't need to wait for the retest of structure to happen. You can join right away. You know that even if price action goes against you, you are only leveraging on the profit you had made so far this week. And of course, you will still be in the positive side of your portfolio if things did not work out. So in that case scenario, you can have a stop loss sitting somewhere close to the previous high. That's about 30 pips, 25-30 pips stop loss is quite okay here. And let's see if the market will move in that direction. So this is my view here as regards to a breakdown of the 1.27120 level. However, if things does not work that way and price does not continue to the downside and instead it continues to find higher highs in this market, then I will position myself above the 1.27450 level, which happens to be the highest point where price action has been so far this week, to inside an uptrend continuation. So I already have a buy stop order above the 1.27450 to capitalize on an uptrend continuation here. So let's see how price action reacts to the zone. Our center of focus basically for today's trading session is between the 1.2745 and the 1.27120 area, where we shall remain patient, waiting for structures to evolve into our favor. So these are my views here on the GBPUSD. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and trust me, I am willing to be of help in that regard. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move on to the next financial assets. And you can as well use that time to mark out those levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point when you're about to make your independent trading decisions. All right, so I see some handful of comments in the comment section. Princess Abulokwe, thank you for your feedback. I really appreciate that. Otiraf, thank you very much. Olusesan Ogunpowale, thank you very much. I think this is my first time seeing your comments. Olusesan, are you new with us? Let me know in the comment section. Eric Mudavadi, good morning to you. I think this is my first time seeing your comment too as well. Glad to have you around with us, and thank you for your feedback. Okay, thank you, Olusesan. I really appreciate that. I'll take that as a compliment, and thank you for supporting this project. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here, so I can afford to move on to the next financial assets on our watch list. So the next asset on our watch list for today is my favorite, the XAUUSD, popularly known as the gold spot. And in fact, we've been doing pretty well since the beginning of this week on this financial asset, as price action had continued to find higher highs and higher lows thanks to poor economic data coming in from the US economic docket. Now, before we kickstart the session, I would like us to run through how the week started for us here in this community and what led into the idea of buying this asset this week. Now, for those who had not watched my video on the XAUUSD, I will encourage you to watch that video, as it will give you quite a lot of background knowledge on how we got to this point on the 1 hour time frame. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be doing anything other than the 1 hour time frame here today. Now, at the beginning of the week, we had a situation here where price action was initially caught up within a range, and that was between the $1,917.60 and the $1,914.50 level. So we had a flat channel at the beginning of the week, which of course, you know how we do it when we have this kind of range. We remain patient, waiting for price action to either break down the support line to give us an opportunity to sell, or break out of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy. Now, in addition to that range was this descending trend line, which made us to think of selling the XAUUSD at the beginning of the week. Now, with the descending trend line coupled with a sharp rejection of the resistance line of this channel and that descending trend line, we were thinking that it's going to be of a selling potential for this week. And as a result of that, we had a sell position triggered. Remember, we had a sell position triggered here, which of course didn't play out as expected, as that position went into a loss for us. So on the XAUUSD too as well, we didn't start the week on a positive note. So we started with a loss, then we were able to recoup our loss as price action gradually unfolded over the week. Now, what we saw here on Monday during the afternoon, during our XAUUSD live monitoring window on Monday, I made mention that the continued buy pressure around this area shows that despite the descending trend line, we identified that it is likely that sellers might not be able to hold on to that momentum. As you will see, we saw sharp rejections of the 1,914. And because of that observation, we decided to capitalize on buying opportunities at the breakout of the 1,916. And one interesting thing about the 1,916 is that it also shares a confluence with that descending trend line, which of course is a confirmation we need to show that the descending trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate that bullish attempt. So with the breakout of both the trend line and the 1,916, we had our first buy position triggered for the week. And in fact, for those who missed out on that opportunity, the market was so kind as it came back to retest structure before the uptrend continuation happened. So as at the first day of the week, we recouped our loss. And of course, we had price move significantly well. We added more positions at the breakout of very important levels that we identify here. Then on Tuesday, we saw some selling signals coming in, and I told us all that I wouldn't be part of this bearish move, but I said for counter trend traders and scalpers, you could take advantage of that move. And one thing I mentioned here is that we are going to be positioning ourselves within this level to capitalize on the uptrend continuation. And if you are with us during our XAUUSD live monitoring window on Tuesday, we said we were going to be joining that bullish momentum as soon as price breaks out of the 1,920 level. And in fact, since that day, we have been buying this asset, adding more position, capitalizing on that move as we kept on joining the breakout of the 1,924 and the 1,926. So we had 3 positions running until yesterday's trading session. Then during the live session yesterday, we acknowledged a range. Remember, for those who are part of our XAUUSD live monitoring window yesterday, we also had this beautiful and simple setup to guide our New York trading session yesterday. So we had a flat channel where price was confined within the 1,938 and the 1,935 to give us something to work with ahead of yesterday's trading session. And of course, we positioned ourselves above the resistance line to capitalize on this move. So this was where we had our 4th position. And in fact, if you are taking advantage of that move, we saw price move over 110 pips in our favor before this whole choppy situation began in the market. For those who are part of this profitable journey, well done to you for being on standby to capitalize on this move. And for those who still have a buy position running at this point in time, you know how we do it. It is now advisable that we move all stop losses to secure this current position, as anything could happen from this point. Now, from this area here, of course, we do want to be giving enough room for price action to breathe. So if you have still have a buy position anywhere below the 1,944 and the 1,942 area seems most appropriate, lock into a position around that area. I personally had my position closed yesterday during the XAUUSD live monitoring window. Of course, I made mention of this on the platform yesterday. So at this point, if you still have a buy position, move your stop losses, secure these current positions while we look out for more trading opportunities. Now that we have a well-secured position, what is going to be our plans for today? Are we going to continue buying the XAUUSD, or is there chances that sellers will come in at any point in time? Now, before I go into the details here, I would like us to run through my commentary on the XAUUSD this morning as regards to what we expect to happen today. Now, for those who are with me on my TradingView and Telegram platform, you will definitely have gotten this update as I talked about this about an hour ago. But for those who are not, let's run through this quickly together. So this is how we have been monitoring the XAUUSD so far this week. So I will, okay, today is 31st. Okay, so right here, okay, it's right here. So I said here that the ascending trend line continues to serve as our primary guide for assessing the possibility of a continued uptrend. It is worth considering selling opportunities only if this trend line is broken. Now, given that today marks the final trading session of the month, the significance of the current trading session is amplified. It's important not to underestimate the potential for profit-taking activities, as this action holds the capacity to reshape the existing market dynamics. The current price hovers around the descending trend line, which has been identified on the higher time frame, as seen in the video. We shall be looking at that in a moment, forming a range between the 1,949 and the 1,943. The question arises, will the price undergo a retest, prompting a sell-off, or will there be a breakout that triggers further buying opportunities? The answer lies in the structural cues, and we remain attentive for confirming signals. So now let's go back into the live chart. Now, if you go back into the live chart, the first thing I would like us to run through from an holistic standpoint, I would like us to see what is really going on the higher time frame so that we can have a better understanding of what is really going on in this market. Now, if we scale up into the higher time frame, remember on our 4 hours time frame, this is what we deliberated on in our video on the XAUUSD. If you have not watched that video, the video is right in the description box of this current one, and they are duly timestamped so you can easily navigate to whichever chapter of the video is of your interest. So right here at the beginning of the week, we acknowledge that since the mid-month of July, price action has been bearish, and in fact, we had a couple of descending trend line to emphasize the strength of the sellers at this point. Now, one thing that happened here this week that made this whole setup very interesting is the breakout of the structure. Now, we saw the breakout of those trend lines, which was a good sign that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate those bullish attempts. Now, with the breakout of the structure, we all know that from a technical standpoint, whenever price action breaks out of a key structure, such as the descending trend line we have here, there are chances that price action will at some point in time come back to retest the structure in anticipation of an uptrend continuation. Now, will that be the case here today? Well, we never can tell. It depends on how the market reacts to this current structure around this area. So are we going to be seeing a reversal pattern coming there, probably a double top, head and shoulder, or a rising wedge to incite a sell-off? And of course, if that happens, we want to be on standby to capitalize on that move. Or are we going to be having a scenario where the breakout of that range will happen to the upside to incite an uptrend continuation? And remember that we are looking forward to the NFP data tomorrow, which of course majority in the market will be anticipating this event, and the reflection of this anticipation will be revealed on the chart as price action. Now let's scale back down into the 1 hour time frame to see what is really going on around this area to decide what our next line of action will be. I just wanted us to see what things are looking like from an holistic standpoint so that we can be on the same page when I begin to discuss the current setup on the 1 hour time frame. So scaling back down into the 1 hour time frame, this is where we are right now. And since last week Friday, we have an ascending trend line that we can use to guide our trading activity for today. So since last week Friday, it is quite clear that price action has been bullish in this market, and in fact we have some pivot lows here connected to give us this ascending trend line to work with. Though we had a breakdown of the trend line here on Tuesday, but we saw how price action climbed back above the trend line, and since then price has remained above that ascending trend line. And you know how we use our ascending trend line in this community. As long as price remains above the ascending trend line, we shall continue to look out for patterns and structures that supports the idea of buying that asset. Now, if we reference this idea onto this current chart, you will see that price action is currently above or around that ascending trend line. So this is where our center of focus is going to be for today. So we have this range here. As you will see, as soon as price tested the 1,949, we saw selling pressure, and in fact following that high, we saw that buyers were finding it difficult to even break out of the previous high to find a new high, inciting an uptrend continuation. So we saw a lower high here, we saw another lower high, giving us the descending trend line I spotted here this morning. So this trend line coupled with the ascending trend line is going to be one of the parameters we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for today. Now, for me to consider buying the XAUUSD today, I would want to see this descending trend line broken to the upside. Now, remember, I'm not going to be getting too excited here. We will need some confirmations to happen. So if price action breaks out of that descending trend line, then of course price will be back above that ascending trend line, of course, and a retest of structure with buy pressure on our lower time frame will be all we need to be part of an uptrend continuation, while a further breakout of the 1,949 level will be welcoming more buying opportunities here. So this is how we want to capitalize on an uptrend continuation from this current market structure. Now, in as much as we are looking out for buying opportunities here, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers. And remember what I showed you on the higher time frame, where I said after price action breaking out of that descending trend line, we expect at some point in time we could have some retracement back into that structure to incite another wave of bullish momentum. So are we going to be seeing some profit-taking activities today? Today being the last trading day of the week also, where it is peculiar for profit-taking activities to come up. Now, to sell the XAUUSD today, I want to see price drop below that ascending trend line. And of course, I would like to readjust this support line here to capture more pivot lows in this market. Now, if we look at it closely here, I'll suggest that anywhere around the 1,944, so I will readjust this one to 1,944. So you do want to be readjusting this on your chart right now. So we have a range already. So I want to see price break down to 1,944, retest of the structure. It could be the retest of the 1,944 or the retest of both the ascending trend line and that descending trend line. But most importantly, what we want to see is signs that buyers are finding it difficult to break out of that descending trend line. And if this is going to be the case, then we are good to sell anywhere below the 1,944 level. Now, for those who are profitable so far this week, we can afford to leverage on the profit we had made so far this week to test waters below the 1,944 level. So what I simply mean is that since we are profitable, we want to risk a percentage of our portfolio, a reasonable percentage of our portfolio, to check waters, to test waters around the 1,944 if the selling opportunity here is going to click. So personally, I have a sell stop order below the structure here, which you of course want to be having your stop losses around the previous high here. About 35 pips stop loss will be fine, or 40 pips stop loss will be fine maximum on this one. And let's see how this bearish momentum will go. Will price break down to 1,944? If it does, then we want to be part of that bearish opportunity we cited on the higher time frame that might bring price into that. Let me show you one more time so that you can see what I'm talking about here. So this is what I'm talking about, back into that key level at the 1,920. Remember, we had this descending trend line broken, and I was talking about the possibilities of a retest of the structure before an uptrend continuation. It may not happen, it may happen, but if price breaks down to 1,944, we shall be aiming at a target zone around that area. So that is how we are going to be capitalizing on selling opportunities on this current market structure. So it's a simple setup we have here on the XAUUSD. We are looking forward to uptrend continuations at the breakout retest of this trend line, where a further breakout of the 1,949 level will be welcoming more buying opportunities, while we are also looking out for selling opportunities below the ascending trend line, just right below the 1,944 area. So that is where our center of focus is going to be for today's trading session, between the 1,949 and the 1,944 area. So we do want to be marking out those levels on our chart, including the ascending trend line and the descending trend line, to guide our trading activities for today. And of course, if there are any significant setup that evolves along the line, I will definitely update you on my TradingView and Telegram platform. So these are my views here on the XAUUSD for today. If you do have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop them in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds as usual to see if there are any questions, while you also use that time to mark out your key levels as we get ready for the next financial asset. All right, so I see a couple of comments here. Ismet Keskin, good morning to you, Ismet. Glad to have you around. Olusegun, all right, glad to have you around, Olusegun. So you are new with us, I knew it. All right, Jonah Aruna, good morning to you, Jonah. It's been a while since I saw you. Good morning. Richard Blackett, always around. Thank you very much for being around, and thanks for the support. Jonah Aruna is asking, please, what's the idle stop loss distance would advise for XAUUSD? I am not sure I understand what you mean by idle stop loss, but I think I mentioned here where we can actually have our stop losses. Like I said, like I used to say, I'm not here to be a financial advisor, but I could give you a specific zone which you can have your stop losses or your TP target at, and depending on your portfolio size and your experience whatsoever, you can decide where you want to put them. Now, personally, for the sell position we are looking at here, I was talking about 35 to 40 pips maximum for a stop loss on this one, to see how far this bearish momentum will go. And if we are going to be buying here, it depends on the previous low. It depends on where the previous low is. So it varies and is dependent on the structure. Now, it is advisable that you use stop losses that is in alignment with your position sizing, and ensure you don't risk too much, because when you risk too much, you might not have the emotional stability to stay in the trade and allow the trade to run through its process. So ensure you have your stop losses. Make sure your risk appetite is very low, so that in case price action moves in your favor, you still have more opportunities to add more position to your existing trade. So if you want to, I will appreciate you say something about your idle stop loss, but basically I've mentioned where I think stop losses should be based on the current structure we are monitoring. Hey Bill, how are you doing, Bill? Good morning to you and glad to have you around after such a long time. Trust you are doing well, Bill. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here, so we shall be moving right into the next financial asset. So the next financial asset is going to be the USDJPY, which of course is going to be the last instrument we are going to be treating for today. And of course, the current market structure has been quite interesting anyway since the beginning of the week. We've had a roller coasters of buys and sells until the later part of the week. We are looking at selling opportunities, but it appears price action is beginning to lose that selling momentum, as we will be discussing in a moment. Now, let's run through how the week started for us here. So for those who have not watched my USDJPY video, I have the link in the description box below. Check it out. They are duly timestamped so you can have a background knowledge of how we got to this point. So at the beginning of the week, we acknowledged that we had a key level which was situated at 146.500, and I told us all how this key level is very, very important. It has both technical importance and fundamental importance to it. I talked about the fundamental aspect where I said the 146.500 area, 146, 147 area has been an area where participants have been wary of the potential intervention of the Bank of Japan. And the reason why that is simply because of what happened last year. It was around this area that the Bank of Japan intervened. And as a result of this, prices back into the zone, and hereby the emotion of fear has become very dominant in the last couple of months. And anytime price comes into this area, we used to see a big nosedive of price action. And this can be connected to the awareness that the Bank of Japan could intervene anytime soon. Now, price was caught within a range around these areas in the beginning of the week, and we saw what happened here, which further emphasized the level of uncertainty around this area, as we saw price confined within the 146.620 and of course the 146.280 to emphasize that indecision at that point in time. And of course, you know how we do it in this community. Whenever we have this range, we wait for price action to break down or break out for trading opportunity. Now, look at this scenario here. We had a buy position at the beginning of the week. Of course, we took advantage of that move. Price moved about, how many pips was that? About 75 pips before the bearish momentum happened. And of course, if we had moved our stop losses, we must have been taken out at a modest size of profit or at a worst case scenario break even, depending on the kind of trader you are. Now, I gave an update on the USDJPY, of course, that was on Tuesday, telling us that let's see how this bearish momentum will be. Is it going to turn out to be a retest of retracement of that impulsive move, or is it going to turn out to be a sell-off, which actually turned out to be, as we saw price broke down the 146.280 for us to trigger a sell position. And of course, yesterday too as well, we saw price broke down that structure, and we agreed that anywhere below the 146.280 will be an area we shall be looking out for selling opportunities. And as of today, if you look at the current structure, it appears that sellers are losing their momentum. So despite the fact that after the impulsive bearish move we witnessed here on Tuesday, we have been noticing lower highs, but despite the lower highs we've seen in this market, price is yet to find a lower low, which is all we need to confirm the bearish momentum. As you will see, how the 145.800 area has continued to be a strong resistance for sellers in this market. As soon as price gets into this area, we see how sellers have struggled. Though we had a point where price broke down really well, but we saw it didn't last long before buyers came in to take price out of that scenario. So at this point in time, we are at a very crucial moment in the market. So for those who still have a sell position running, please ensure you move your stop losses to your break-even zone while we wait out and see how the market will be reacting to this 145.800 zone. Now, before we go into the details here, I would like to run through my commentaries this morning on the USDJPY. Though for those who are with me on my TradingView and Telegram platform, you must have gotten this update. But for the sake of those who are not, let's run through this quickly and see what we said we are going to be doing today on the USDJPY. So right here, I said initiate a cautious sell stance as the price movement encounters resistance within the 145.800 zone. The emergence of a breakdown retest of the zone could potentially unlock additional selling opportunities. Remember, breakdown retest because we will need some confirmations at that point in the market. Alternatively, if the prevailing buy pressure manages to endure within the zone, a breakout retest of both the descending trend line and the 146.050 level could present favorable buying prospects. Adding to the complexity of today's trading landscape, it's essential to note that this marks the final trading day of the month, a period traditionally linked to profit-taking activities. Furthermore, another impactful economic factor today is the U.S. core Personal Consumption Expenditure Price Index, poised to provide a vital insight. Now, let's go back into the live chat. Now, if you look at the structure here, you will see that we have a range already. And besides the fact that sellers are finding it difficult to break through the 145.800 since the beginning of this week, is a beautiful range which further emphasizes the level of indecision at this point in time. As you will see, price is confined between the 146.050 and the 145.800, which is going to be where our center of focus is going to be for today. Now, depending on what happens around this area is likely going to determine where price action will be closing this week. So from a technical standpoint, you know how we do it. Whenever we have a range like this, we want to remain patient, waiting for either a breakout of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell. Now, in this case scenario, let's talk about the potentials of the buyers first of all. Now, with the way things are going right now and with the consistent buy pressure observed around the 145.800, if this continues, then the chances of price action breaking out of this descending trend line increases. Now, one interesting thing about the trend line here is it shares a confluence with the 146.050 area. Now, if the buy pressure around the 145.800 persists and sellers continue to find it difficult to break through, then the chances of a breakout of the descending trend line increases. Hence, we want to be positioning ourselves ahead of the structure to capitalize on an uptrend continuation. So to give a visual representation of what I'm talking about here, I would want to see price break out of the 146.500, which also will break out of that descending trend line. If possible, retest of structure, buy pressure around that area, welcoming more opportunities to buy. Now we have multiple levels, of course, 146.280. We have the 146.500. If price breaks out of these levels, we want to be adding more positions to our existing trade. So that is how we are going to be looking forward to buying opportunities here. So let's see how the market will play out from this structure. However, if the contrary happens and the sell pressure persists, then leading to the breakdown of the 145.800, then we want to hold on to the bearish bias. But one thing I would like to see here is a confirmation before jumping into a position. Remember, we already have a sell position running. I've told us all to move our stop loss to our entry point. Let's secure this position and see if the price will break down the 145.800. And if it does break down, a retest of structure will be welcoming more selling opportunities here. So this is my view here on the USDJPY. I do hope I made myself very clear. But if you feel that you need some clarifications or you need to ask me some questions as regards to all the assets we've talked about today, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we round off for today's trading session. All right. So in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here. It has been a wonderful moment out here today, and we talked about how important today is, considering the fact that it is the last trading day of the month and there are tendencies of some reversal moves against the prior leading price action. So we want to be on standby, and we also reviewed the possibilities of this on all of the assets we talked about today. So we looked at the GBPUSD, we looked at the XAUUSD, and of course we looked at the USDJPY, where we were able to identify simple setups using only fundamental tools such as trend lines, key levels, and chart patterns to position ourselves ahead of the London and the New York session today. And I do hope you are able to mark out these levels on your chart, as we shall be needing them as a reference point to guide our independent trading decisions for today. I'm very confident that we are well equipped, as we were able to look at all the possible scenarios that are likely going to happen today. Hence, I would encourage us to remain very patient, waiting for our structures to mature before we jump into any position. And most importantly, remember your risk management strategy. You want to ensure that you have a risk appetite that your emotions can actually manage. Then that reminds me, I already dropped the link to the XAUUSD live monitoring window, which normally comes in about 5 to 10 minutes into the New York session. The link is right in the comment section. I've dropped it right there. You do want to be clicking on that link. Click on the notify me button so that you can get notified when we come online. Now, for those who don't know what the XAUUSD live monitoring window is, well, we kickstarted this program about a month ago, where we said it was based on popular demand anyway, where we decided that we are going to be monitoring the XAUUSD together during the New York session. And in fact, it's a great opportunity for you to have an insight into how we position ourselves ahead of each move, and how we also move to secure positions, and how we also look out for more opportunities on this asset. So I would love to see you right there during the XAUUSD live monitoring window coming up later in the day. If you have found this content helpful and useful in making your independent trading decisions for today, I would really appreciate your support by giving the video a thumbs up. Your likes are valuable to me, and in fact, it also helps the YouTube algorithm to push this video to a wider range of traders who may find this content beneficial to them too. Thank you very much for doing so. I really do appreciate your support. For those who are live in the chat, and for those who are behind the scenes watching from your comfort of your homes, please support the project, and thank you for doing so. And on that note, I would like to call it a day here. It has been a wonderful moment with you guys today. And for those who are joining us for the first time, I do hope you are able to gain one or two things from what we discussed here today. But I encourage you to stay tuned in with us, be part of the subsequent session, as the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how the simple parameters works, and of course, eventually be able to use this information you have gathered here to make your own independent trading decisions. So it's on this note I wish you best of luck today. I see your comment, Adene Babalola. Thank you for the support behind the scenes. I really do appreciate and glad to have you around here with us this morning. So on this note, I wish you all the best of luck and see you all in the comment section of both my Trading View and Telegram platform, and of course during the XAUUSD live monitoring window today as we continue to monitor price action. Do have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye-bye.